First Gnostic Church of Christ. This is video number 2 of the first apocalypse of James. In our first video, we brought out the importance of understanding the feminine aspect of existence is essential, the feminine essence, that is, to have reflection, to be able to passively take the will and shape it with wisdom. We also come to understand Christ introduced the Archons are among us. They walk among us. There are, in fact, a total of 72 that walk among us, and each of those are Archons, or archangels, if you will, have power to reside over the original 70 or 72 nations. Some would argue that was before or after the fall of Babel, depending on who you ask. But of course, today we have close to 200 nations and well over 7,000 languages. But we're talking about the original root languages and nations, as was understood at the time of the Old Testament. After all of this, Christ shared that he is to go to the cross. These Archons will come after him, and that ultimately they will also come after James. And James is concerned. How do I get to the place or reach what Christ called him who is? And him who is referring to the Christ within, the Father monad, the essence of the monad, essentially. That's where we left off. So we pick up now what we're getting ready to read. A lot of it is very fragmentary, and there's a lot of discussion around James's concerns about these powers, principalities, coming after him, and how Christ is explaining to James not to worry that you are not your body, but instead you are your spiritual self. And Christ also expressed that. Some would argue when Christ talks about not being injured, he was referring to asceticism. There's two parts to him. There's the physical self, but really he was the spiritual self, and that spiritual self, the Jesus man, didn't suffer. However, my understanding is not that, but instead Christ is suggesting that if you identify with the spiritual self, you understand that the physical body really ultimately isn't what the Archons are after, and nor is it what they're ultimately trying to injure. They're trying to injure the Christ within. And so that's really what I believe Christ is saying. He's saying they were unable to injure me because the Christ power is beyond their ability to see or understand. For the Archons grope in the dark, and they don't have gnosis, for they lack a spirit. James asks Christ, he says, Rabbi, in what way shall I reach him who is, since all these powers and these hosts are armed against me? So he recognizes, okay, you're saying I've got a mission, and that mission is to help the other disciples and others in the world to understand the good news that Christ had talked about, our origins, to wake them up, help them to identify with the spiritual self, not the physical self, to get in touch with the feminine and balance that with the masculine. And then, of course, the female getting in touch with the masculine to balance with the feminine. And so Christ said to me, these powers are not armed against you specifically, but armed against another. It is against me that they are armed, and he's referring to the Christ. So they are armed with other powers, those other powers beyond the Archons. We're talking about the Demiurge and all of his minions, the demons, etc. But they are armed against me in judgment. Now, here's where it gets fragmentary. They did not give ... to me in it ... through them ... So I have no idea what's been said here. In this place ... suffering. I shall ... He will ... and I shall not rebuke them. But there shall be within me a silence and a hidden mystery. I am faint-hearted before their anger. So my guess is Christ is saying there's going to come a time where they're going to come after me and they're going to seize me. But I'm not going to stop them, because there is a hidden mystery in why I must be seized and why I must be brought to the cross. And even though this is true, Christ is still expressing he is faint-hearted about this, that he too has a kind of weakness about facing this sort of destiny that he's walking. Going to be difficult, in other words, and he's faint-hearted about it. And he understands how angry they're going to get, and they're going to come after him. James said, Rabbi, if they are armed themselves against you, then is there no blame? So James is having some difficulty understanding, like, why are they coming after you if you're innocent? That's pretty much what he's asking. You have come with knowledge, that you might rebuke their forgetfulness. You have come with recollection, that you might rebuke their ignorance. But I was concerned because of you, for you descended into a great ignorance. So James at least recognizes that Christ was taking on something that was very difficult, because humanity, by and large, was very ignorant, and they willfully decided to remain ignorant, a good portion of them. But he goes on to say, but you have not been defiled by anything in it. So he's baffled. He's saying, like, why are they coming after you? I just don't understand. You're just trying to bring them knowledge, trying to help them recollect the worthiness to receive the good news, that they are loved by God and they're of the spiritual essence. So why are they so angry to you? So he goes on, he says, for you descended into a great mindlessness, and your recollection remained. He said, even though these people are worked up in a frenzy against you and try to basically subsume you, you are able to maintain a mindfulness. And you remember, you stick to the truth of what you know to be true. You walked in mud and your garments were not soiled, and you have not been buried in their filth, and you have not been caught. So he recognizes up to this point he hasn't been caught, even though he's bringing this great truth. Ultimately, he's still confounded that Christ is bringing all these things that are going to benefit humanity. And yet, like I said, James is hinting at, and Christ is suggesting, they're going to come after him, despite all of that goodness that he's bringing. And why is that James wants to know? Like, what's this about? Why? Why do humans do this? And I was not like them, but I clothed myself with everything of theirs. And he says, even deep inside, before you even came along, I never really identified with them, but I went along with the ways of the world. There is in me forgetfulness, yet I remember things that are not theirs. So he knew that he was different. There was just something that he heard about the way their dogma, the way they explain the purpose of everything, being the laws or run away with lust, right? Cares of the world. That didn't set right with him. There is in me, ... Now, we're not clear on what's being said here. It's missing. And I am in there, ... So I'm not going to speculate. So we go on. Again, a lot of this is going to be fragmentary. And it goes on and says, ... knowledge, ... not in their sufferings, ... But I have become afraid before them, since they rule. He understands their power and how much damage they can do. So he's admitting, a lot of the times I just kind of go along with things because I was afraid of what they're going to do to me or my people that I love. For what will I do? What will I be able to say? Or what word will I be able to say that I may escape them? And so Christ said, James, I praise your understanding and your fear. So he's recognizing that, yes, I see that you have this fear, and I also see that you understand. If you continue to be distressed, do not be concerned for anything else except your redemption. So he's saying, put your eyes on the reason you're taking this walk and you're telling your truth. The only thing that really ultimately matters is that you're able to redeem yourself from this realm. In other words, redemption. Think of like if you go to get a coupon. It says you can redeem this coupon and you get a free meal. This is something that he has. A free ticket out of here, basically, is what Christ is saying. Keep your eyes on that. For behold, I shall complete this destiny upon this earth, as I have said from the heavens, and I shall reveal to you your redemption. So in other words, he's trying to give James the confidence, you needn't worry because what I set out to do will be accomplished. And that includes to redeem all those who have found gnosis about their origins and their intentions to bring forth the accomplishment that is within them to bring forth. Telling James, like, look, I'm very confident that this is going to be completed. I'm going to complete it. So you need not worry. If you just follow through that, you understand that, then you're going to be okay. James said, Rabbi, how after these things will you appear to us again? James is worried if they're going to come after you, maybe they'll end up killing you. So how am I ever going to be able to see you again? Basically, he was asking him. After they seize you and you complete this destiny, will you go up to him who is? So he's even questioning, like, when you complete that mission, then does that mean you leave this earth realm? And Jesus said, James, after these things, I shall reveal to you everything. not for your sake alone, but for the sake of the unbelief of men, so that faith may exist in them. So he's saying it's not something that I feel Christ can explain, that, about the resurrection, that he's going to come back in spiritual, a new form. Maybe that was too much, sense that maybe it was too much for James to handle. But he was reassuring him that I'm going to reveal everything to you, so don't worry. For a multitude will attain to faith, and they will increase in. I'm not sure what it says there, ... And after this, I shall appear for reproof to the Archons. So this is going to be not only him visiting among the disciples, but he is also going to go and visit the Archons. And this is what he does when he goes up to the seventh heaven and he becomes Jesus Christ. And then at that point, he becomes the Sabaoth. He is at the right hand. And of course, he keeps balance. And he educates the demiurge and the Archons. He starts to tell them something that they didn't understand about how everything is organized from the beginning. And as shall reveal to them that he cannot be seized. He's talking about the Christ. He can seize his body, the Jesus man's body, but he can never seize the Christ. So he's going to let them know, listen, Archons, this is pointless for you. This is not something you're going to be able to seize. If they seize him, then he will overpower each of them, because this is just going to be too much for them. It's going to be too overwhelming. But now I shall go. So he's going. Now remember the things I've spoken, and let them go up before you. In other words, everything I taught you, let it lead the way. All right? Let it lead the way. The higher mind guide you. Jesus said, Lord, I shall hasten as you have said. The Lord said farewell to him and fulfilled what was fitting. So that was the end of their conversation at that point. And we're going on to the next paragraph. Again, it's going to get even more fragmentary. When James heard of his suffering and was much distressed, they awaited the sign of his coming. So they were waiting, anticipating, they were worried. Christ was being persecuted. And he came after several days. So finally he came back. And James was walking up on the mountain, which is called Gaugelin, with his disciples, who listened to him because they had been distressed. And he was ... a comforter, presuming James was reassuring them. He told me he's going to come back, saying, this is the ... second ... This is going to be the second time he's going to come back, or something along those lines. Then the crowd dispersed, but James remained ... prayer ... as he was his custom. So they left, and then James was staying there, Gaugelin mountain, and was continuing to pray. And then Christ appeared to him. Then he stopped his prayer and embraced him. He kissed him, saying, Rabbi, I have found you. He was excited, exclamation point here. I have heard of your sufferings, which you have endured, and I have been much distressed. My compassion, In other words, I give you all my empathy and sympathy that I can muster. I give that to you, what you've gone through. Therefore, on reflection, I was wishing that I would not see this people. He doesn't want to see those people anymore that did these horrible things to Christ. They must be judged for these things that they have done. For these things that they have done are contrary to what is fitting. Fitting is another way of saying fair. So Christ said, James, do not be concerned for me or for this people. I am he who was within me. So he's saying that I'm not this body. I'm the Christ within. Never have I suffered in any way, nor have I been distressed. Some will read that as proof that Gnostics believe in asceticism. Jesus didn't suffer. The body of Jesus didn't suffer. And the soul Christ that was residing in Jesus, that was being animating the body, and that was it. And he was unable to suffer because he was not of flesh. But it makes very clear in not only the Gnostic text, but in the canonical text, that Christ is suffered in flesh. He suffered. Now, what Christ is talking about here, though, or Jesus Christ, or Jesus, the man, is saying, he's saying that, my interpretation, he's saying, I am he who is within. He's identifying with the Christ and his mission. And because of that, whatever the physical Jesus may have suffered, the physical part of him, that became unimportant to him. He was not distressed because he knew his path. And this people has done me no harm. The Christ again. Remember what he said earlier, that they can't seize him, the Christ. Now they can seize the Jesus man. He talked about he's going to be seized. The fact he can be seized means that the physical Jesus can be seized and can be harmed. As a matter of fact, he died on the cross. So to me, it's not talking about asceticism. Christ was setting an example about how to identify when you're going through suffering. Focus on the ultimate goal. Focus on the mission and identify with that as who you really are. And know that that part of you is not being harmed because it's eternal and it cannot be seized. Now, your body can be seized. The flesh part of you can be seized. It can be harmed. It can experience suffering. But this people existed as a type of the Archons. These people are really just mindless kind of drones of the Archons, is what he's saying. And it deserved to be destroyed through them. Now, he says it. He didn't say they. The Archon. It deserved to be destroyed through them. So destroyed through them, not destroying them, but destroying it. Whatever that it of the Archons is, which is the divisive nature, the lack of gnosis. But the Archons who has but since it angry with the just is his servant. My guess here, he's saying, because the Archons know how to use anger and fear and all these terrible things, they just fall in line. These people, they just fall in line. They become like servants. Therefore, your name is James the Just. You see how you will become sober when you see me and you stop this prayer. Christ is saying that just because you automatically stop praying and you embrace me and you kiss me, it's instinctual to you. This lets me know that you are just. You are just a just man. And not just that, but you are authentic. Now, since you are a just man of God, you've embraced me and kissed me. Truly, I say to you that you have stirred up great anger and wrath against yourself. Now, this is the thing, when you start to line up with authenticity of self and the Christ starts to glow and grow within and emanate, then yes, it starts to stir up anger and wrath from the Archons. But this has happened so that these others might come to be. So he's saying these others, these lost people, so they may get to be. They're not even being, is what Christ's saying. They're just drones. They're like mindless zombies. They're not even existing. So it's just quite extraordinary how Christ is articulating this to James. He's saying, but this has happened so that these others might come to be. Meaning they're not even being. They're not even beings. They're not even alive. So very, very interesting. Okay, we're just going to do a couple more paragraphs here. But James was timid and wept, and he was very distressed because, Christ just talked about, like, okay, they're angry. They're coming after you. For James' standpoint, it feels like the whole world's falling apart around him. It's all starting to crash down. They just came after his rabbi, his master. Now they're going to come after him. And they both sat down upon a rock. And so Christ, hey, let's sit down for a moment. And Jesus said to him, James, thus you will undergo these sufferings. So rather than try to get him to, oh no, it's going to be okay, and just calm down, it's not as bad as you think, you'll get through it. No, he instead says, no, you're going to go through a lot of suffering. But do not be sad, for the flesh is weak. It will receive what has been ordained for it. Because the flesh is only there to do one thing. It's to suffer, to remind us we are not, like that body's not eternal. That's what I'm saying. The body's not eternal. And that's not something you want to identify with, because it's not something that is reliable. It's eventually going to disappoint you. It's going to give out. It's weak. It will receive what has been ordained for it. But as for you, do not be timid or afraid. And then Christ ceased. The Lord ceased from there speaking. So his goal is to really say, I want you to know you're going to suffer, but don't focus on being sad or timid or afraid. Focus on understanding this is part of the process toward the redemption, toward the ascension. Now, when James heard these things, he wiped away the tears in his eyes, and very bitter, which is ... The Lord said to him, James, behold, I shall reveal to you your redemption. When you are seized and you undergo these sufferings, a multitude will arm themselves against you, that they may seize you. And in particular, 3 of them will seize you. They will sit there as toll collectors. And it's kind of remind you of the Apocalypse of Paul, right? When he went up to the various heavens and he met the toll collectors. So the same thing is going on here. Like, that's the whole thing. It's telling you have to earn your worthiness. And we get to dictate the means by which you earn that. We determine if you get to pass or not. Well, Gnosticism, Christ says, no, you already have intrinsic worthiness, and you are free to pass, period. You don't need to earn that. Not only do they demand toll, but they also take away souls by theft. So remember, they take those souls, and then they reincarnate them. When you come into their power, one of them, who is their guard, will say to you, and here's the way you want to understand. Christ is asking us to speak. Now, you don't have to say it exactly like this. Maybe say it paraphrased or in a more modern sense. But the point that's being made through each one of these is what we want to focus on. One of them, who is their guard, will say to you, "Who are you, and where are you from?" You are to say to him, "I am a son, and I am from the Father." He's telling the truth. So, I am a son of God, and I am from the true Father. Ultimately, what's being said here. He will say to you, "What sort of son are you, and to what father do you belong?" You are to say to him. And again, now, this is what I think Christ is saying to him when he goes up through the heavens, like Paul did. I am from the pre-existent Father, and a son in the pre-existent one. So pre-existent, meaning before this physical realm, the Kenoma, the existence of this Kenoma, there is a Father, and I am that Father's son, and I existed before this Kenoma as well. This is what I belong to. And when he says to you, ... you are to say to him, ... in the ... that I might ... So I have no idea what's being said here. So let's just pick up on the next section where it says ... of alien things. Question. You are to say to him, they are not entirely alien, but they are from Achamoth. Who is the female? Something's being said here about maybe these Archons are catching on to James is going through this process of answering these questions. This toe collector, this Archon, is saying, well, you got a flesh body, don't you? So how could you have existed before? This is sort of what I'm guessing. And so Christ is saying, this is the way you answer. They are not entirely alien, but they are from Achamoth, who is the female. So, in other words, we are three parts. This is what he's suggesting. He's sharing that we're three parts here. There is the alien part of us, but we're not entirely alien. We're also part of the mother, or the female, of the wisdom. We're from her, the Achamoth, the fallen part, or the lowercase Sophia, right? The flesh-oriented Sophia. And these she produced as she brought down the race from the pre-existent one. So then they are not alien, but they are ours. So in other words, you don't get this body. Even this body and the soul and the spirit, I own this. You don't. Because the demiurge or the Archon wants to convince you, no, I'm the one who created and molded this. He says, well, no, you came from Achamoth. You come from Sophia. So did I. So you don't even own it. She does. And she's part of the monad. She's part of the aeons, aeonic realm. They are indeed ours because she, who is mistress of them, is from the pre-existent one. At the same time, they are alien because the pre-existent one did not have intercourse with her. So in other words, Christ did not consult with her when Sophia decided to take it upon herself to run toward the Father. And the anomaly was created when she wanted to be as the Father. But she didn't consult first with her counterpart when she produced them. And this is what brought about the whole anomaly, because she didn't feel she was worthy to receive the Father. And that lack of worthiness, therefore, created the realm we're in, our existence. And now we're just trying to find our worthiness, really, ultimately. When he also says to you, where will you go then? And so he's saying, well, if I don't own you then, and you're saying the pre-existent one before this realm, where is this place and where are you going exactly? You are to say to him, to the place from which I have come. There shall I return. Now, because if he said pleroma and, it's outside this realm, these Archons in the demiurge would not understand that. They wouldn't get it. So he says, I'm going to where I come from. I'm going back. And if you say these things, you will escape their attacks. So this is that point where the demiurge or the Archons are recognizing, like, okay, well, this guy, he knows what he's saying. Like, he's very convincing. Either he's just kind of making it up and I'm not threatened, so go right ahead. Or maybe he believes it and he's like, well, I don't really understand it, but okay. Maybe he doesn't see James no longer as a threat. Once James gets past the collectors, he then goes to the next section. But when you come to these three detainers who take away souls by theft in that place, ... these, you ... a vessel ... much more than ... of the one whom you ... for ... her root. Once he's able to show James to the Archons that, own me, his spiritual self is able to get through. But how is he able to then get his soul from not being stolen? That's what's coming up in the next section. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, have a blessed day.